Hi, and welcome to Untethered with Jen Liss, the podcast that's here to help you break free, be you, and unleash your inner brilliance. I'm your host, Jen, and in this episode, we're going to talk about going the distance with embodied mindfulness. Let's dive in. Hey there, friend. It's Jen. Welcome back to the podcast for a Thursday thread. It's actually a special Thursday thread. We are threading from my Thursday thread last week. Can I do that? I like to break the rules. We're breaking the rules. Last week in the Thursday thread, I talked about how I truly came to breathwork, came to mindfulness. And one of the ways that I did that was a time when I was training for a marathon. And a book showed up for me that greatly impacted my life, impacted my ability to run a marathon, first of all, something I never thought that I would be able to do, and also shifted this little 1 or 2 degree shift in my mindset, in my experience that brought me back home to my body, that brought me back home to the present moment, that helped me connect to my breath in a way that I never had before. That book was called ChiRunning. And the author of that book is named Danny Dreyer. And that gentleman, that human being who impacted my life in such a big way is on the podcast today. So Danny is the co-founder of ChiRunning and ChiWalking, which are revolutionary forms of moving that blend the subtle inner focuses of Tai Chi with running and walking. He has been studying this and impacting people's lives with this, myself included, for a long time, helping runners and walkers and people of all kinds to have profound results through these very simple techniques that he teaches, some of which he is going to talk about on the podcast today. Now, while Danny does not specifically teach breathwork, he teaches breathwork. And we'll talk about that in the episode, the ways in which he teaches people to use their breath, the ways that we can recognize when we might not be our most efficient in life by actually recognizing the way that we are breathing. Now, he teaches people to do this through exercise, but he mentions that it's actually applicable all throughout our life. This is a holistic approach to life. I really think you're going to be delighted by some of the things that he shares, and you might also see some of the ways in which his thinking has influenced my own thinking and some of the things that I regularly share here on the podcast. So helping to support the science of embodiment week. Everyone, welcome to the podcast, Danny Dreyer. Hi, Danny.
Hi. Nice to be here, Jen.
It's so exciting for me. You know, my listeners know sometimes I nerd out over people coming on the podcast, and this is one of those nerd out moments. It's just, there are people who have a pivotal moment in your life. And it's wild to look back and notice those things. And as I came into doing breath work and facilitating breath work, I look back at a moment with your book as being, that is where I discovered mindfulness. That is where I discovered breath work and where I really started integrating it in a way that was meaningful to me and in a way that really worked for me. Because we're told all the time, like, be mindful, use mindful practices. But it's like, it takes that moment for it to sink in, at least for me. So your book was one of those. So for everybody who's listening, Danny has a book called ChiRunning. It's a whole program, a whole process. You teach people, you support people in running in this whole new way that you teach, that you have discovered. And it's completely different than anything that I had ever seen or heard before. What got you into teaching this way of running?
Well, first, I wanted to go back and just say that we also have included the whole group of walkers. So it's ChiRunning and ChiWalking, because not everybody runs and almost everybody walks. So what got me into it was really Tai Chi got me into it. The actual functional use of using your body, paying attention, mindfulness, the whole thing. Because Tai Chi is ancient tradition of connecting with your body. So when you talk about using your breath to help people, live longer, connect with their lives, or anything like that, all of that, obviously, and you've probably seen it, has to begin with sensing your body, and the beauty of being in your body or being in your breath, same thing, is that it really brings you into the present and into what's right in front of you right now. Where am I? What's going on in my body? And so, when I started taking Tai Chi classes, it was all about moment to moment sensing what's happening now. If I try to do this stance, how does my balance change? How does my breathing change? How does the weight on my feet change, or is there tension in my shoulders? It's just like a really functional way to get this stuff in your body. Like you said, when some people start breathing better, they're not sure if they really get what it is, but this is really embodied breathing, embodied body sensing. So it's always all about what's going on in me right now, and how does that affect my life, how I'm operating in the world with me right now. And is there anything I can do to change that, to make it better or flow better, or, yeah. So basically, that my relationship with Tai Chi and Qigong really informed that for me. It just, you have to go into your body. Otherwise you'd never learn to practice in the way it's meant to be done.
I feel like this is an entire metaphor for life. Everything that you're saying, there's 2 thumbs up.
Absolutely.
How did you, I'm just curious, what drew you to Tai Chi? If we go all the way back, kind of looking back to those pivotal moments, why did you start in on that practice?
Well, I've always been fascinated by martial arts, but I never really did any. I was not like I wanted to learn how to kick somebody's butt or anything like that. I was just, I'm half Chinese. My father was from China. And so I've always been kind of fascinated with that side of my heritage. And so I guess I was probably, 45 years old when I first discovered Tai Chi. A friend of mine said, "Hey, there's a guy in town from China teaching Tai Chi. You want to go? He's really good." And so I went, and that was my light bulb. That was my first awakening to, oh my God, it's not just about getting to be a better runner. I'd already been a runner for 25 years. And it wasn't about getting to be a better runner, but it was about learning how to attune to my body, and becoming a better runner or walker was a byproduct of that. It wasn't, being a good runner wasn't my goal, but it kind of did this backdoor thing with me that I realized once I started applying some of those principles out of Tai Chi into my running. All of a sudden the world changed. My whole experience of how I moved my body changed many ways. I didn't need as much recovery time. I wasn't breathing as hard when I was working out. There was less recovery time needed. There wasn't a lot of damage to my body. And the more I applied these principles to everything I did in my movement with my running, the easier my running got, the better the results got. And God, it was almost weird. It was like I was being taken for a ride in my own body. That's how it feels, or it felt. Because when I first was introduced to Tai Chi, I was at the time an ultra marathoner. So I was doing distances all longer than a marathon, up to 100 miles. So, when I was out there for many, many hours, and started applying this, all of a sudden, like I said, I wasn't feeling the fatigue coming on that I usually would feel running that far or running as fast as I was. It just didn't happen. And so that's when I thought to myself, that was a big awakening for me, was like, well, how could I show this to other people, or how can I get it into a system so that other people can take advantage of this? I'm feeling the results. There's got to be some connection between this Tai Chi stuff and regular everyday functional movement,
Yeah.
So it was good. And so I spent, and with my wife, helped me write the ChiRunning and ChiWalking books, and we both discuss it a lot because she would do the running, but she was more of a walker. And so, but we realized that all the same underlying principles work. So it's really what we were trying to do is take somebody from regular, everyday layperson. How do we get them to become not only sensitive to their body so they can move better, but how do we get them excited about it? Like most people don't think twice about it. They just go out and run, go out and walk. It's no big deal. Sometimes they're tired when they come back. Sometimes they're not. It's not in their mind. So when we first started introducing this concept, we started with the running because that's what I did. And I started, as soon as we released the book, I started teaching classes, local classes. I was living in San Francisco at the time. And I was seeing really good results. And my clients and people in the classes were seeing like immediate results,
Yeah.
And since then, that was 1999, it's been a while. So I gradually honed my skill at imparting this information in a way that more and more people could go, oh yeah, this makes total sense. Why am I still moving the way I am? It hurts. I get tired. It's painful. I'm wiped out the next day, and so that's what, between what I was coming up with and the feedback from students was what really just kept me at it, searching, how can I get better at this? How can I relate it better? What can I do to help, And
Yeah. I think it's really cool. One of the things that you shared is that you were 45 when you discovered Tai Chi. And I look at you as, you're so accomplished. You've written books, you've changed people's lives, you've changed my life. And so I highlight and underline that for anybody who is listening. We are always learning, we're always discovering, and your major contribution, like they're happening all the time and they have your entire life. And there could be something coming for you that is simply following. You were curious and you were connecting things in your life and following your curiosities, and that curiosity, look at all of the amazing impact that you have had. That's really, really cool.
Thank you. Yeah. Because, we didn't start the ChiRunning business or write the books till I was 50 years old, because I had been working on the system. And then I was really good at researching it in my body and writing down notes and stuff like that. My wife came from a publishing background and a marketing background. She knew how to organize information. I don't.
Yeah,
I'm like
perfect
as
pairing.
ADD as the next person, And so it made a good team to like actually get it done and into a book form or a workable form for people. Yeah.
That's really cool. So I really want to talk about the technique that you teach. But first, let me just share with you a little bit about my story. And people who've listened to the podcast know a little bit of this story. So I was training for my first marathon. I didn't start running until I was 30, by the way. And I thought I would never run. This might be TMI, but I started my period when I was 12 on the mile run in middle school, and it was so painful and so horrible. And I blamed running on ruining my body basically when I was a teenager, that was such a traumatic experience.
Not a good introduction to running.
Not a great introduction to running. And I swore it off. I said, I will never run. Well, I ended up, my best friend ran a marathon and it inspired me. And I followed this path. So I'm training for my first marathon, something I never thought I'd do. All of a sudden, my husband is in medical dire straits. He had to have his entire colon removed. Mm-hmm. He has this very intensive surgery. While he's in the hospital, I have to go for a 16-mile training run while my husband is just barely recovering from this surgery. I'm like, see ya, honey. I'll be gone for 5 hours while I go run this 16-mile training run. I'm in such emotional and physical pain. I haven't slept. I'm like, how am I going to get through this? And I had read, somehow I ended up with your book. And I'm not even Danny, to be fully honest with you, sure how, but I had ended up with your book and I had read most of it, but there was this one specific part that was talking about being mindful and being present, and a couple of the things that you said at the beginning of this conversation. And it just really hit me that day. And I was like, I'm willing to try anything. And so I got really present with my body and in the moment, which normally I had been ignoring my body because this is painful, right? Like I'm just trying not to pay attention to my body at all. I ended that 16 miles feeling like amazing, amazing. And all I had been doing was just these very simple things that you share and not even doing it well. Let's be honest. It was like brand new. I had never done mindfulness practices really. And I ended that 16 miles like, okay, wait a second. There's something just happened to me. And it was almost like I could physically feel myself getting out of my limbic brain and into like this present. I almost felt something happening in my head. I was like, this is wild. And from then on, I mean, when I run, I catch myself not being present and I bring it back into the present. And it has just, I've run 3 marathons now and multiple halves. And it's just, it was transformative, truly, truly transformative. And it was the mindfulness. And for me, that's what I realized was that it was also the breathing. There was something about the breathing and paying attention to the breath that I didn't fully recognize at the time, but now I realized. So my question for you with this technique that you teach is, what does breath have to do with it? It's body sensing its breath. Like, explain to us what is really happening and maybe even what was happening with me in your terms that made the big difference.
Yeah. Well, what's really interesting is that I'll back up just a little bit. When you said that running was painful and, it was hard to do and stuff, yeah. Everybody's generally first experience is having to deal with pain. And we're not good as a culture dealing with pain. There's drugs to mask the symptoms, but there's no way to actually work with the pain so that it goes away or it doesn't get caused in the beginning. So how breath work comes in, and in order to include breath work, so this whole thing about being mindful in your body is what it brings on is the need to be more holistic in your body. So you're not just, if you're trying to run a marathon, you're not just working on your running technique. You're working on your overall level of body alignment or relaxation. You're working on your emotional state as right parallel with your physical state. And, that's triggered by your goals or your fears or whatever it is that you're working with. The more somebody can actually work their body as a whole unit to where it's not just physical, you include the emotional level, you include the structural level, you include an ability to breathe well and relax better, the more, as many different areas of what creates life to flow that you can bring in to what you're doing, whether you're running or writing a proposal or leading a business meeting, or it doesn't matter. The more encompassing and holistic you can bring in all of your awarenesses on all those levels, the easier you breathe. You can imagine taking care of, okay, I'm feeling tense in my shoulders. I've got a presentation to do. I got tense in my shoulders. So I go, okay, so how can I just relax? And sometimes you can relax by breathing. Sometimes you can breathe better by relaxing. Doesn't necessarily one make the other, but it really helps. Okay, so in order to relax, I can't be slumped in my chair because then I won't breathe well. So then I have to sit up. Same thing if I'm running. If I'm slumped when I'm running, my lungs aren't going to take in oxygen like they could, And if I'm slumped, oxygen's not going to get to my brain, which I need in order to keep all the wheels spinning, right? And so, obviously to me, breathwork is one of the foundational parts of not only having a good life, but you can apply that on any level, whether it's in a relationship or whatever you're doing. If I'm having a discussion with my wife and I'm uptight, it doesn't go well unless I really sink into my body, feel my feelings, feel my physical body. Am I holding tension? How can I let go of that? How can I speak more cleanly or with more compassion? And the same thing goes on when you're in an event like a marathon, half marathon, any distance. It's all relative. So if you are in a marathon, let's say you pass the half marathon mark, there's two things that could happen, at least two things that could happen in your mind. You could go, oh my God, I've got another 13 friggin' miles to go. Are you kidding me? How's this going to happen? All of a sudden, that shortens your breath, tenses your muscles, makes you like uptight while you're running. That's going to keep blood from flowing to your brain, right? Or to your muscles. It's going to keep you from being relaxed, which is really how to allow better circulation. It's just being relaxed. And so if you get the other option is to just fall into, and what I use my breath a lot when I'm running. So if I'm out of breath, that's my first indicator that I'm using more energy than is called for. And being mindful means you don't just breathe hard and go, okay, I'm going to suck it up and here we go. You listen for it and you go, okay, if I'm breathing hard, what am I doing that's making me breathe harder? What could I change relative to this? So then that teaches you to always be responding, have an interaction with the present moment, with your environment, with your own body, So I could be going up a hill, running up a hill halfway through a marathon, and I'll get out of breath and I'll go, So I'm going up this hill and I'm out of breath. What am I doing wrong? And what you're doing wrong isn't going up a hill, because the hill's going to be there no matter what. It's how you approach, how you respond to the hill. And so I naturally just go, okay, now's not the time to push. Now's the time to settle in, because if I'm breathing too hard, it's not going to help me. So I usually, shorten my stride, slow down, maybe use my upper body a little more because my legs get tired running up a hill. So I make all these little micro adjustments along the way. And then I make note, did my breath change? Yes. I'm not breathing as hard. So if you're in a situation in life, or if you're running and you're getting out of breath, be aware that any breathlessness, we'll call it, will send you into the sympathetic nervous system engaging. And then what happens? Oh my God, then adrenaline starts shooting through your body, and cortisol and all these, and you start burning fuel like no tomorrow. All these things happen that puts you into a fight or flight mode, right? When you start breathing hard, that's why breath is so crucial. And so then your body is actually working against you to get done what you need to do. So how do you switch if you catch yourself being in that situation of breathing hard or breathing unnecessarily, not relative to really what's going on? It's really triggered by, oh my God, there's a hill, I'm dying. How do you switch yourself into the parasympathetic nervous system? Oh, okay. So I can change my technique so it's not as hard on my body. I can start breathing more into my belly. I can, for me, rhythmical breath really helps.
What's your favorite technique of rhythmical breath? What do you do while you're running?
I match my footstep with my in and out breath. And so I might, I don't usually ever go to one breath in, one breath out every step, but many times I'll go 2 out and 1 in, and so I'm running along to a waltz beat, out, in, out, in. If I need more oxygen at the time, I'll breathe 1 breath out and 2 breaths in. So I'm actually taking in more oxygen. So I'll switch it depending on what I need, and more often than not, when I'm trying to relax myself with my breath, I match it to my stride, and I try to balance. I try to make it so that I actually have more steps that I take on my in-breath. So I always try to, and some people say they relax better by extending the out-breath, but that's different when you're running. When you're running, it's important to get plenty of oxygen to your muscles because they're what's firing. That's what's moving you down the road. So I always opt for a little longer in-breath. If I was in life, I would be probably the opposite. Because if I'm really trying to relax in a meeting or anything like that, I would be really just the out breath really just allows you to let it go. Letting go is totally synonymous with the out breath, and I can think of my attention just breathing it straight out my body through my mouth or my nose. Okay. So that's a really direct way of dropping yourself into the parasympathetic nervous system, which then, turns on a whole lot of the really good hormones, allow you to relax and rest and enjoyment and happiness, and all of that stuff comes from, and all it takes is being mindful of, how am I breathing? What's going on right now? What's happening that my body is responding to? And then you making the choice of, okay, then, given the information I know of how I could change it, what do I want to apply here that would work the best? And so that's kind of if once somebody learns this system, then you can't ever go wrong. It's like, why would you keep on breathing hard when you don't have to? If you can do something about it, either physically or mentally, or emotionally, why keep yourself in that state when there are options? So in ChiRunning and ChiWalking, I have basically 4 main things I'm checking in with all the time to make sure when I talk about being holistic, these kind of keep all the plates spinning. So I got 4 plates I'm spinning. So one of the principles is body sensing, right? Because if you're going to make any change, your body, this is the vehicle you got. This is your only way of interacting with the planet you're on, is having a body. So body sensing is, to me, absolutely bottom line.
And that's one of the things, as you mentioned earlier in the conversation, most people are not doing. We're numbing and we're not body sensing. So very important. Yeah. You've got it number 1.
Yeah. The drug corporations will completely go with you if you want to numb. They'll symptomatic relief. Doctors will prescribe painkillers or anything like that. I remember once being at a marathon expo where I was giving a talk, and there was a booth in the expo floor, big bright red sign with yellow letters, and it was a booth for Advil. And I went, oh my God, that much emphasis on Advil. And what the yellow letters said were, when my body is complaining, I refuse to listen. To me, I was like, that's so sad. So anyway, so body sensing is the bottom line rule. And then once you sense your body, the next thing to really be aware of is your posture. So that's your physical alignment. So, when you work with people, you might have them lying on the floor, or if they're in a chair, you might have them just sit up straight, because anytime your body alignment is better, it's much easier for your muscles to relax, because then your body is being supported by your structure, not your muscles. So if you can stand, move, run, walk, sit in a way where your structure is supporting your body weight, there's not a whole lot of extra work going on muscularly. Just like stacking bricks up. And then you can pay attention to the other stuff. Okay. So the second principle is alignment and relaxation. They come together. So you have to have alignment and relaxation. So, from Tai Chi, that's like yin and yang. Alignment is yin. Relaxation is yang, right? And so, but they have to be 2 sides of the same coin. They have to come together. If they don't come together, then you just have alignment. You could be stiff.
That feels like such a paradigm shift, honestly, Danny, for myself and probably a lot of people too, because we think of like sit up straight as being not relaxed. You think of it as being a little bit stiff a lot of times. Like that's kind of the mental image. But what you're saying, when you align, then you get to relax. The relaxation is going to happen naturally because your body can relax. It doesn't have to work so dang hard to hold yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Upright. And alignment, so it's alignment and relaxation. The word "and" should be all caps. Because if you're just aligned and you're trying to go, okay, I'm aligned, here we go, you don't want to end up being a surfboard or something like that. But if you can create alignment, which is really just moving your skeleton into a position where your bones are stacked up. It doesn't take tension. It's just moving. It's just changing your posture. Then everything can relax. So that allows relaxation to come in. Yeah. Beautiful. So then the third principle is cooperating with forces. This comes right out of Tai Chi. So when you're running or walking down the road, there's always two forces acting on you. One is the pull of gravity, always. And as long as you're moving forward, there's also the force of the road coming towards you. So that's another force you have to like deal with. So there's these two forces. If you're moving around this planet, those two forces never really go away. So it's a good idea to start cooperating with those forces. And, you know, in Tai Chi, you cooperate with the force of your opponent. If somebody's throwing a punch at me, I want to make that punch ineffectual. It's my goal as a martial artist, all right? So I want to redirect that force. I don't want to take it. I mean, I'm not Rocky, you know? So if somebody's punching me, if I can move in the same direction as that punch is going at the same speed, what does that do to the punch? Totally doesn't make it a punch any longer. Somebody's really just moving their hand and I'm moving along with their hand. So that takes the force out of the oncoming force if I'm moving with it. All right. So cooperating with a force is moving with a force. So let's take the two forces. If I'm moving with the pull of gravity, gravity wants to pull me straight down towards the center of the earth every step I take. So if I want to cooperate with a force, I can allow my whole body, once it's aligned, I'm doing that first. Once it's aligned, I allow that aligned body to fall forward into the pull of gravity. If I'm upright, gravity's pulling straight down, it's not helping me.
Right.
As soon as I go off balance and throw my center of mass just a little bit forward, I start falling like a tree just got chopped down, right? As soon as I start falling, gravity will take over and it'll be pulling my body down. But since my body is all ahead of my feet, it creates a forward pull. So then if I cooperate with gravity, it can be my propulsion. And that's nuts and bolts how people that do chi running are propelled, mostly gravity. Very little leg work is needed. You know, watch the Kenyans run. Videos of Kenyans at the start of the Boston Marathon. You know, they're running right next to the white guys that are trying to keep up with them, right? And the white guys are like bolt upright. Kenyans are all like totally forward. They're taking advantage of that because, and you look at the Kenyans, their legs are about as big as my forearm. You know, they're skinny little guys, you know, and they don't need muscle. They're using the pull of gravity. Okay.
That's so beautiful. There's so much trust that's required, though, Danny, there. And I mean, everything that you say is a metaphor for life in general, but there is so much trust in leaning forward. And I felt this because I have, you know, used your method of aligning and leaning into the run. It feels a little scary when you're not used to it. And I feel like that's life in general, like letting go and trusting that gravity is going to pull you, or trusting that you're being led in the right direction on this decision. You're trusting your intuition. It's really kind of terrifying.
Yeah, well, and I totally get that, because that's one of the biggest things I have to wake people up to, is that it's not a dangerous thing, and you always have control about how far forward you fall or how much you don't fall, right? And so that's when the word balance comes in. So you try to fall forward in a way where it's not so far forward that you're afraid you're going to fall, or that you're stiffening your legs to hold you in that angle, you know? And it's not so upright that then you have to push yourself with your legs. So there's this tricky little kind of place, right? Just a little bit off balance. For different people, it's different. Some people who are older really don't want to have very much of a forward fall. But I just say, just have enough that you can actually feel it working. It feels easier on your body. But if you fall too far forward, it's just like life. Dive in too far, somebody's going to get hurt. You know, you lean too much into something, people are fanatics about something, or, you know, this it works on every level. So that's why these principles are very universal levels. Okay, so cooperating with forces. So then the the two forces. So we talked about the first one of gravity pulling you forward. The second force is the oncoming road. So how would I cooperate with the oncoming road differently than somebody who was like the conventional walker or runner? So how most people run is they reach with their legs. They push off with one leg and reach with their other leg. And they do this reach and pull kind of thing. Well, for me, if there's an oncoming force, I want my leg only to really move in a rearward direction, because then I'm going the same direction as the road is relative to my body, right? I only want my stride to swing rearward. I don't want to think about swinging my legs forward. I want my body to fall forward, but I don't want my legs to swing forward. And so as soon as my feet hit the ground, it's learning the skill to be able to just allow, and allow is a huge word in everything. It's not taught enough in our culture, allow the road to just take my leg out the back. And if I can keep this balance point where I'm just tipping forward, gravity's pulling me, and I'm allowing the force of the road to move through my body, not into my body, which would happen if I land with my foot in front of my body, right? If you land with your foot in front of your body ever at all, you're putting the brakes on. You're hitting that road coming at you, and then your knee has to absorb that shock, or your hip or your low back. And that's why running is so fraught with injuries. And if you notice all the injuries that happen in running, most of them are from the knees on down. So all of that's from impact and overuse. There's only really two injuries you could get from running: impact, overuse, maybe getting hit by a bus or falling in a pothole. But the two main injuries come from,
happen.
Yeah, been there. So it's either impact or overuse. Impact bothers the joints, overuse bothers the muscles. Okay, so that's cooperating with forces. And then the last thing to really pay attention to is, as you're learning this system that can help you, it's really important that you take it gradually. So I call the principle of gradual progress. So you don't want to get ahead of yourself. If you do, somebody's going to get hurt. You don't want to increase your speed too fast. You don't want to increase your distance too fast. It's gradual. Just take it step by step. And that's really a universal principle, because that's good grief in everything. That's how plants grow. They don't start off as a big plant. They start off as a seed. Go from there. And if you really do gradual progress, it really trains you in body sensing as well. So each one of these principles feeds the other principle. So you can't proceed gradually if you're not body sensing. So body sensing is like right now, I've got I've been building a little greenhouse in my backyard, right? So over the 2-week period, and I'm not used to doing that kind of work. So I hurt my knee climbing up and down step ladders and hauling sheets of plywood up and down stairs. And, so my knee got to the point where I couldn't run, and I haven't had a running injuries. I was looking back at since 1991, and I've covered a lot of miles, so
blame the plywood.
So now, yeah, really. So that wasn't gradual progress. I just jumped right into doing all this work that my body wasn't used to. And so in order to heal from that and get back into running or walking, I needed to do gradual progress. I didn't even push my running. My knee hurt every time I touched the ground. So I had to back way off to where I just started off standing. Then I introduced a little bit of walking, and then I would walk to where I could maybe walk a little farther, very gradually. So I've done this over 6 weeks now. And most people who are avid runners would just be chomping at the bit. Oh my God, I got to get back to running. I'm going to go crazy. I'm already crazy, so I wasn't worried about that. So then I just gradually introduced that. And then finally this last week, in the middle of one of my walks, I just fell into a nice, easy jog, something that was absolutely not stressful on my body at all. And now my job is to very slowly increase that. And I'm not worried about speed at all. So I can actually just adjust the distance. Now, if I'm going to adjust that distance, I have to keep all of these principles in mind. I have to body sense. When is my body done with however far I'm running now? I have to listen for it. If my knee starts hurting again, I'll go, okay, that's it. I'm good with that. We're done. I can just walk now. And I want to be sure I keep my alignment and relaxation going, because that's going to make the impact last. Same with cooperating with forces. So I'm doing all of these principles all at the same time. And that's what I mean about body sensing and being as holistic as possible, because then you can get these principles like we're just talking about, and you can apply these to, like I said, anything. And then that's embodiment. That's really embodying principles that apply to anything. And when you embody it, it's yours. You own it. You can use it anywhere. You got a credit card. You're not limited by how and where you go and spend it. That's your source of exchange, right? And so that's the main thing of all the nuts and bolts that I've been trying to teach for 20 years. And it's why it's been successful is they're not my principles. They're universal. I just happen to recognize them, adapt them to running and walking, and then let nature take its course with all the people who try it.
Yeah. And thank you for putting them out there. A couple of things that really stand out is your holistic approach. And so often we live in this society, and there's so many reasons why everything is this way, but it's very compartmentalized. Like health is this, and exercise is this, and mindfulness is this, and it's all separate. And the way that you look at it is so like one thing affects the other. If you notice that your breath is shallow, then notice where you might be resisting, notice where you're not cooperating with the forces, and recognize how you can then realign. It's like you're looking at this more holistically. And it really truly was your book that was the first moment for me of starting to see that, how one thing impacts the other. And this isn't just true. If you're listening to this, you're like, well, I'm not a runner. This is applicable in your life, no matter what goal you are striving for, is to notice where is there resistance? Where could I be leaning in with more ease? Where could I be using gravity? Where could I be trusting? Where could I be allowing? Allowing is one of my favorite words. I use it all the time in breath work, because it really is about allowing our breath to flow. We just have so much control. We're just controlling. So Danny, I do have a question for you though, because that Advil thing is just such an amazing example of just where we are in this world of we're numbing it out. We're ignoring our bodies. So for somebody who might just be like, you know what, I actually am that Advil person, because that was definitely me too. I'm just trying to numb it all out and just go forth and just jump in, not gradual progress. I just want to be numb and like get there. I'll just get there in the numb way. Why?
Numb and move on.
Yes. Why is that not the way? Why should we not be doing that? Just if you were to give somebody just your best advice.
Oh, well, it's pretty easy. And that's because that's really reducing your connection to whatever's malady is going on in your body. You're reducing it to symptomatic relief. And the interesting thing is, and you find this, the more you study yourself when you're in a situation that doesn't feel good. Okay. In our culture, it's like illegal to not feel good, and if you don't feel good, you better do something about it or fix it, rather than look at the pain or look at the discomfort, look at the negative situation. And instead of going, I'm out of here, I don't want anything to do with this, I just want to get it over with, kind of thing. Instead of looking at it that way, just think about altering your mind or your perception start asking yourself questions. How did I get here? Why do I have a headache? I mean, most people will come up with a reason. Either they'll blame it outside or they'll be smart and blame it inside, Oh man, I've been rushing around like crazy this morning. I've already had 3 cups of coffee. So that changes that paradigm into body sensing. That's the first thing. And body sensing, whenever you're in your body, it puts you into the present moment. And anytime you can get into the present moment, you're better off than if you're in your brain in the future, worried about the past, somewhere else besides right now. That's the beauty of the body. It does not exist in any other time zone. It doesn't. It's impossible. Your brain does. In fact, your brain exists everywhere but the present, because it wants to get rid of the pain. It's already in the future. Or it's thinking in the past, oh, I've had this before. I don't want that. So it's either too far forward or too far back. So it's what it is people just being afraid to go in. And some people are afraid of what the answer to that question might be, Oh, I did this to myself. Ooh, that's bad. No. When you do body sensing, the important thing about sensing your body, no matter where in your body you feel pain or discomfort, it's so important not to make a judgment about it. Just watch it, just observe it. And if it's pain, you'll be able to really function with the pain, the more able you are to let it in. Let it in to where you can feel it and you can see it. Well, I use the word welcome. Welcome it in. It's like, when there's a little kid fell down, skinned his knee, runs back into the house, runs up to his mother, who's busy cooking dinner, and is crying, and I need something. I need care. I need attention. I need love, comforting. So the mother says, get out here. I'm busy cooking. See you at dinner. That kid remembers that memory. And many of us as adults are still remembering that memory. And we're acting as if somebody's telling us, I love you, kid, but get out of here. That's how then we treat our own discomforts. This little knee is coming up to me and pulling on my shirt and saying, what do I do? I need some help here. And if I say, oh, okay, I'll take an Advil. Maybe it'll go away. Maybe this kid will go away. But instead, if you go, oh, I'm sorry you're hurt. What can we do? It's obviously not okay with you. Is there anything that I can do to support, to care, to treat your own body that way? I know we're horribly bad at taking good care of ourselves, really listening internally, because we're just not used to it. We've never been trained to do it. And it's a mystery. And people are really uncomfortable about the unknown. I certainly am. I'm trying to work at it, get better at it, but the unknowns can be a pretty scary place. So don't treat negative feeling situations or pain or emotional troubles as something to shy away from or fix. Just at least let it come in and have its voice. Start there. And then whatever it's saying, you can just say, oh my God, of course, no wonder, no wonder you're hurting. And then this little voice goes, that's all I needed. I just needed to be heard.
Truly, the child just wants mom to notice and say, I see you, it's going to be okay. And Danny, it's so funny. You just walked right into exactly what I do with breath work and how I support people in noticing and sensing judgment-free in your body, just seeing what's here. And that's what it's all about. And it's what you taught me to do with running, noticing what's here, making little micro adjustments so that you can make that little meaningful progress that's going to help you make life easier. So it's a metaphor for life. It works well in running. It works well in so many things. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing everything that you've shared. Can I ask you one last question?
Sure.
This is a question that I ask every single guest. Where do you see the magic in the world around you?
Not everywhere I look. I mean, that's a funny answer, but there's nothing that's not a miracle to me. I mean, doesn't matter how bad it is, how good it is. It could be, wars going on. It's all a miracle. This whole human thing is just amazing to me. And to watch it go on again without getting identified with it, you can watch the process of, wow, how humans interact, and the sadness of lack of interaction or the sadness of too much overreaction. But it's all just a fascinating study of life. And it sounds silly, but one of my favorite things to go to see a wonderful cross section of life is Instagram. I don't ever post on it. But I go through it, and I'm fascinated by the human condition. And it's kind of like an encyclopedia of how crazy it is to live as a human being and all the various experiences. And so it's just a miracle. I mean, sometimes it feels like a miracle that we still inhabit this planet, given what we've done. And sometimes it's just the miracle that we are even walking around in little independent bodies is like, that's beyond comprehension. All the things it takes to just be alive. Any one little thing goes wrong and you're gone. That's a miracle. So it's around me, and every moment. The pain is a miracle. The discomfort is a miracle. It's something to be learned from. There's never a downside.
That's amazing. You're such a magical witness of the human experience. You've honed that ability through your own interest and your own skills and everything that you've done. It's like you're just witnessing all that's here. And we certainly need the people who have that kind of like stepping back and looking at it. And that's so cool. So thank you so much, Danny, for coming on the podcast and sharing everything that you've shared. Where can people connect with you?
They can connect with me through the ChiRunning website, and they can leave me a message there. I don't usually give away my email address. It would be dangerous. But yes, they can connect me through ChiRunning.com, and that's the best way. And I wanted to thank you for doing this podcast. You're doing a great service to a lot of people. So keep it up. It's awesome work.
Oh, thank you so much. It really, this is my following my magical curiosity just down all the rabbit holes. And it delights me at every turn. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast and for sharing today.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much to Danny for coming on the podcast. Again, he has been such an influence in my own life through that book. And I just want to underline and highlight once more the importance. I said this at the end of our interview to him, you just never know the people who your book has impacted. And the same is true for you. You don't know when you show up for your gifts, when you recognize that something is supporting you in some way and that you could share that with others in the world in whatever way, whether it's a book or a podcast or doing a talk or creating a pamphlet, whatever that thing is that you feel called to do, you could seriously change somebody's life by showing up for it. So thank you so much, Danny, for coming on. I hope you took something really beautiful away for yourself. Now, in Thursday Thread fashion, we will do a very short breath to close out this episode. One of the breaths that I personally love to do while I run is what I call, it's similar to what Danny described in the episode, the pulse breath. Now, with the pulse breath, we do 2 breaths in and 2 breaths out. You can do this through the nose or you can do this through the mouth. Today, I invite you to do 2 breaths into the nose, 2 breaths out through the nose. And what's so beautiful about this breath, you can do it while you're running. You can do it while you're walking. You can do it while seated. You can do it while in an intensive breathwork session. It really helps you to focus not on the mind, but instead on the breath itself. So if you'd like to take a seated position, aligning your spine as suggested by Danny, inviting a nice deep inhale into your belly through the nose. On your exhale, closing down your eyes. Taking another deep inhale, expanding that belly. And on your exhale, with that spine aligned, inviting all of your muscles to relax. And when you're ready, we are going to begin that pulse breath, breathing 2 breaths into the nose, 2 breaths out through the nose. We can begin together whenever you are ready. That's it. Just continuing that pulse breath, 2 into the nose, 2 out through the nose. Keeping that spine aligned. On those exhales, seeing if you can let those muscles relax just a little bit more. Beautiful. As you continue to breathe, inviting in an intention with a question. Who am I being today? Continuing with that pulse breath, 2 into the nose, 2 out through the nose. Who is it who I am being today? Calling in that highest version of yourself, who you desire to be. Aligning yourself with your breath, with your spine to that person. Aligning yourself to that intention. And whenever you are ready, releasing that pulse breath, drawing in a breath deep into the nose, filling the belly, and exhaling completely. Bringing your attention to your feet on the floor, wherever your feet are. Maybe giving them a wiggle. When you're ready, opening your eyes. Just coming fully back into the present moment. Thank you for taking this moment today with us to breathe, to try maybe a new breath that you might not have tried before, to absorb all of this new information that Danny was sharing with us, and to really delve deep into the science of embodiment and mindful practices. If there was something that you learned or loved about this episode, I encourage you to share the episode with a friend. You can tag myself on Instagram, and I will always reshare your posts. Reminder to connect with Danny. All of his links are in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. You just keep shining your magical unicorn light out there for all to see. I'll see you next time.